We are in Shemos, the 22nd chapter, Mishpatim. We are going through what seems to be sort of wading through arduous commandments and laws, and seemingly kind of maybe difficult because it just seems to be so like, duh, these are good things. And then occasionally we'll come across something that's like, well, why in the world is this written? Why did Hashem do this? Generally speaking, the mitzvot are divided. You know, we call all the commandments and testimonies, judgments, mitzvah, right? But they're really sort of divided up into categories. They are divided into two major categories, what we call logical and super-rational laws. The logical Mishpatim, in which we have here, are laws and judgment, and then this area called super-rational chukim is decrees, things that God makes decrees on. And there are some that on the surface, when we hear them, they seem very logical, and it's like it makes sense. The question would be, did God give them because they were logical, or are they logical because God gave them? There is a difference between the two. Clearly, we know that they're logical because Hashem gave them. And many of these laws are the same laws that you see Hashem's fingerprint in every nation, because it's good common sense. Thou shalt not kill, right? Don't steal property. Don't covet someone else's property. Treat a person's property as if it is your own. And if something happens to that property that you have in possession and it's destroyed or torn up, you owe them something back. If you rent a piece of equipment and you tear up that piece of equipment and you are shown to be negligent, then that deposit is forfeited, right? I mean, these are logical things. The idea, though, that there are the chukim are these mitzvah of laws of family purity that sort of, the Jewish people would not come up with these laws. Does that make sense? Right. You don't invent these things. If you're going to invent laws, you want laws that are practical, that are going to make your life easier. You just don't invent some of these laws. The laws of purity, for example, are decrees or laws that Hashem passed down to His people that have everything to do with making sure that ritually you are pure and you are able to korban and to come bring your offerings to the temple, the Mishkan. And these laws are not really seen outside of the land. And we do see that there is a practical portion of that later on in history during the time of the Black Plague that struck Europe. It was laws of ritual purity that preserved the Jewish people from getting the Black Plague in general. Now, it didn't help them when they were accused of being the spreaders of the Black Plague, but in general, they avoided the diseases of the Egyptians. And that is one of the reasons why the other day that we had this conversation in class about our diet and how we eat. And I think that you were the one that mentioned about a couple of physicians that were saying, can you repeat that?
Yeah, there was two physicians, and I couldn't find it again, the video.
Okay.
They did some studies, and these guys weren't, necessarily, Torah following physicians, and they started doing studies where people were eating kosher, and they were reversing a lot of the heart disease. They reversed that, and even cancer. Cancer, they were talking about how the body is made to fight cancer itself. That's the cure for cancer. But we don't feed it what it's supposed to be, fed, or the way it's supposed to be fed.
So it can fight it.
So it can fight it. Right. So it just, cancer develops, the body can't fight it, so we people die. So it was like 2 hours long, but I couldn't find it.
Well, if you find it, I'd like to be able to put it up on the website.
Exactly.
So you understand this idea that there are some laws, even after you have the details like this. It's like, wow, this is amazing. You know, it makes so much sense. But if you are the Hebrew people in the wilderness, you don't have a YouTube video to go to watch to see if how it makes sense. What did they do when they heard these decrees, these laws, these judgments? They did them, right? They didn't do them because they made sense. They didn't do them because they were logical. They did them because Hashem said, "That's right. This is my ordinance and decrees." And so as we read through these texts today, I will attempt to keep it exciting. I know it's difficult. But what we most definitely learn from this is the great attributes of Hashem radiates from this. It's like being near a wonderful meal. Though you haven't eaten it, you can smell the smells of the spices, and you know that this is going to be a delicious meal. And when you read this, we are able to sense and partake of the character and attributes of Hashem that otherwise we wouldn't. He would be such a mystery. There's no way for us to understand him. And so as we go through, sort of make little notes to yourself. This teaches me this about Hashem. I know Hashem because in this text it says this, and therefore it reveals this part of Hashem to me. So we go to chapter 22, verse 15. 15. If a man entices a virgin who is not betrothed and lies with her, he must surely commit himself to her or offer to marry her. In Chumash, he says, if a man shall seduce a virgin who is not betrothed and lie with her, he shall provide her with a marriage contract as a wife, as his wife. If her father refuses to give her to him because he is a low-down, no-good-for-nothing freeloader.
Maybe he doesn't like the guy.
Yeah, maybe he doesn't like the guy, period. The guy, a father can turn her down, and he has to weigh out silver according to the marriage contract of the virgins. So he's got to pay for her regardless. I think that would be a great law to have today, wouldn't that be? It'd be a great law, because now...
With interest.
Yeah, with interest, right. You shall not permit a sorcerer to live. What is a sorcerer? One who is a conjurer of spirits, right? Or witchcraft, correct? Do not permit a sorcerer to live. Now, what we mean by this is one who is a sorcerer in the camp of Israel. It doesn't mean that they went on sorcerer crusades and killed sorcerers, because clearly there were sorcerers out in the nations. Anyone who lies with an animal shall be put to death. Pretty logical to me, isn't it? Anyone who brings offerings to the gods shall be destroyed. Only to Hashem alone. You shall not taunt or oppress a stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall not cause pain to any widow or orphan. If you dare to cause him pain, for if he shall cry out to me, I will surely hear his outcry. My wrath shall blaze, and I shall kill you by the sword, and your wives will be widows, and your children orphans. He's pretty serious about taking care of the widows and the orphans, right? When you lend money to my people, to the poor person who is with you, do not act toward him as a creditor. Do not lay interest on him. If you take your fellow's garment as security until sunset, you shall return it to him. For it is his clothing, it is his garment for his skin. In what should he lie down? So it will be that if he cries out to me, I will listen, for I am compassionate. What do we learn from Hashem is that you do not charge interest for someone who is poor. Okay, now technically you're not supposed to charge interest to a brother or anybody, right? So, you know, that's, but especially someone who is poor. If you don't have the money, you don't give it to them.
Isn't this talking about collateral too?
Collateral, yeah. So you don't take collateral from a poor person. They don't have anything.
Right.
And if you take that collateral and that's all they have, if something happens, they're left homeless or they're left without a coat. I mean, it's more than just a coat. It's the idea that that collateral is the only thing that they possess for sustaining life. And if you take that and remove that, you have to make sure it's returned back to them. So, interesting concept. You shall not revile God. You shall not curse a leader among your people. Verse 27. So let me see something here. I've got something I want to. So, yeah, to come against, revile against God. I'm going to read you something from Onkelos. Onkelos says, he says also to refer you in this text to 21:6 and 22:7. Onkelos based on this translation Elohim as judge, since in Leviticus 24:16 we find the prohibition of blaspheming or cursing God. Rashi and Nachmanides, however, suggest that the verse also contained the warning for the prohibition of blasphemy. Nachmanides adds, even if a nickname or another what do you call it, appellation for God is used, he refers this to another place, and I don't have time to go to it, but it also says, suggests that that this refers to a king. Nachmanides, however, states that it includes all those who exercise political or spiritual authority. So the idea of one who, actually Onkelos translates that very text this way: you should not revile a judge or put a curse upon a ruler among your people. You shall, so anyway, you should not speak against a judge or ruler. How do you balance that out in a democratic society?
You don't.
Don't vote for them.
Don't vote for them. Right. That's a good point. Wisdom well spoken. This has more to do with judges within the household of Israel from the Sanhedrin, who were leaders of the nation, and they were handpicked by Hashem. You understand? They were elders and leaders of the congregation. It is blasphemous to revile the leadership that God sets in front of you. If you speak evil against a judge who brings down Torah, it's like you're reviling God. You are coming against the face of God in that thing. So does it make sense? So it is talking about not cursing a leader, but the cursing of a leader is like emboldening yourself in the face of God at the same time. Does that make sense? So I wanted you to
This was within God's system, are you saying?
Right, not in this, like, for example, in America, if you say that your congressman is nuts, that's not the same thing. Okay, we live in a democracy, right? We can speak those
things.
things.
It's not God's system.
Well, it says your people.
Your
It's
people.
talking
Yeah.
Right.
exclusively.
Exclusively the people of Israel.
And
Right.
if you look, a lot of the other laws are not exclusive.
Correct. They're general.
Right.
And we have to sort of pay attention to them because the text is important. The text is important how it reads out. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just have to watch out.
But you
Well-
still have to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let me add this, because Lashon Hara is still has a effect on you personally, right? And we've got to be careful how we speak of things, even if they're true, right? So Lashon Hara sort of kind of envelops a lot of other concepts that we should be careful with. I know, Facebook is one of these places you go to, and sometimes it's like
Yeah.
overwhelming, some of the things that people will say about our president and the government and stuff like that. Some of it true and some of it blatantly
Right.
not true, right? It's just not true. You can go fact check it. And so people have no problem just clicking share, because they're not interested in facts, they're just interested in continuing to propagate this heat upon the political system. And we, as people of God, need to live at a standard of holiness in which we're not speaking Lashon Hara. That's all it is to it. So, very good point.
I have a quick question. Is there any reason why it says Elohim on line 27 and referring back to God, and then earlier they're saying Adonai? Is there any commentary why they choose Elohim as God or Lord instead of saying Lord?
Instead of saying Lord, yes, because Elohim is also used as authorities on the earth. Like Psalms says, and you are gods, talking about the people, the Jewish people, meaning Elohims. You are judges in the earth. So and that's why Onkelos and I believe Nachmanides, as I said, both will translate this as judges, not as God, because this is the word Elohim means the judges.
I thought Elohim is all the different qualities that God possesses.
Elohim could mean God in that sense, because he is ultimately the king of the universe. He's Elohim of the universe, right? But mankind is also, or can, the people of God are considered Elohims in the earth. And it can be a little confusing. Yes, ma'am?
I'm following along on Chabad.org with the Rashi, and it says, you shall not curse a judge, and in Hebrew, Elohim, this is a warning against cursing God.
Right.
And a warning against
Cursing.
cursing a judge. It's a dual
Right.
message.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a dual message.
And very clearly, if it was just speaking of Hashem alone, it would have used Adonai, Lord, or the sacred name of
But
God.
when you curse his people, you're cursing him.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I mean,
that's-
really, it's synonymous. So
axiomatic.
you're not going to get away with, as the Arabs say, we don't hate Jews, we just hate Zionists.
Right.
So
Thank you.
that makes sense. You're welcome. Someone start reading for me in verse 28.
Do not delay your fullness offering or your priestly heave offering. The firstborn of your sons shall present you to me. So you shall do to your ox, to your flock, for a 7-day period shall it be with its mother. On the 8th day you may present it to me. People of holiness shall you be to me. You shall not eat flesh of an animal that was torn in the field. To the dog shall you throw it. Do not accept a false report. Do not extend your hands with the wicked to be a venal witness. Do not be a follower of the majority for evil, and do not respond to a grievance by yielding to the majority to pervert the law. Do not glorify a destitute person in his grievance.
Okay, let's stop right there. Why not sell meat to the nations or to the goy that has been torn? Why
It's
not?
kosher. It hasn't been,
Well, it's not so, well, obviously it's not kosher because it's been torn
Right.
in the field. But,
If you want to
Has
give
it
it to
followed
yourself,
If you-
I'll give it to somebody else.
yes, exactly. But it goes further in the fact that if it's torn, it could carry a disease because it would have been attacked by another animal. And so it's only fit for a dog, right, to give it to a dog. So if you have a cow or a deer that you want to give me for my dogs, we'll take them. It might take them a few years to eat them, but...
Is that the same as a kosher, well, a Jewish person selling ham sandwiches in a deli?
Good question.
Because it happens.
Yeah, I'm going to have to
Yeah,
let
they're
you...
two different things.
It's different, but we'll have to ask the great rabbi when he
I'm
comes.
just wondering.
Save that one.
That question came around from last year, remember?
Yes,
Jeremy?
Jeremy and Robert.
Oh,
Remember
yeah,
that?
I forgot that, yeah, yeah,
But if the cow has a disease though,
Right.
then you're technically murdering someone.
right,
Or not willingly, what do you call
Yeah.
it, when you don't do it intentionally?
right.
But, I don't know, but he's appropriating a business, so I'm
Right.
not sure what I would do. I don't know if he should be selling them either, but
Selling ham
what are you gonna
sandwiches,
do,
that's...
you know?
I wouldn't think you should.
I don't think he should, but I
Well,
don't
that's what I'm
know.
saying.
Well,
He's-
according to Torah.
Yeah, no, he's not supposed to.
Yeah.
but-
I'm not sure if he was supposed to handle the stuff, but anyway.
Well,
There's
he
turkey
doesn't.
nowadays.
He has employees.
Oh, he has employees.
He has employees, and he's got the matzo balls on one end, and he's got the ham and the bacon.
It's not a
and-
kosher restaurant then.
Yeah, he's kind of splitting it.
Yeah, it's not kosher. Yeah, if you ever go into a quote-unquote Jewish sounding restaurant and they're serving bacon and eggs,
Yeah.
it's not kosher,
That's called a
period.
fence restaurant.
Yeah,
you know,
run
Ronald
away
Trump.
from the place. Okay, so you shall be a holy people before me, verse 30. You must not eat flesh torn from a living beast, that you should cast it to the dogs. This idea of holiness is, once again, you're not like the people of the nations. They'll take a beast that's been torn up in the field and they will eat it. Okay, you're not an animal. You are at a higher standard than the nations around you. You must not accept a false report or report of falsehood. You must not join your hand with one who is guilty to be a false witness for him. This is in the court system, right? You must not side with the majority to do evil, and do not restrain yourself from teaching what is correct in your eyes concerning the lawsuit, but conclude the lawsuit like the majority. This is talking to those who are judges. Do not show pity for a poor person in his lawsuit. Don't show pity. What does that mean?
Be fair.
Be fair. Even if he's poor, doesn't mean that
Right.
that he's got a legitimate lawsuit, right? And obviously we know the opposite's the case. If someone comes in wealthy, you don't join them because he has the most,
Right.
the most chutzpah in the deal, right? If you encounter the ox of your enemy or his ass that is wandering astray, you must surely return it to him. You don't know how many times I've wanted, no, I'm just... to return my neighbor's... Anyway, never mind. If you see the ass of your enemy lying under its burden and would refrain from helping him, you must surely abandon what is in your heart concerning him, and you should unload the animal with him. This is generality of showing chesed, loving kindness for people, period. This is God's people. You must not subvert the judgment of your needy in his lawsuit. You must keep fair from the word of falsehood. Do not kill one who is actually innocent, and one who leaves the court declared innocent. For if I will not find innocent one who is guilty, And do not accept a bribe, for the bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and deranges or spoils straight words. Do not oppress the who?
Surgery. Is it back to gear?
Yes.
Yeah, the gear. It is.
This is a ger. Do not oppress the ger. Different from the regular stranger guy. He's the guy that lives with you in the community. The ger is one who has converted his heart toward Hashem and puts his trust in the Torah. For you know the soul of the proselyte, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Yes, ma'am.
Ron, we went to go see the movie Lone Survivor, and it's a true story. And in that movie, there was a community an Afghan community that one of their laws was that you must protect their enemy, their visitors from their enemies, and they still practice that law.
Do.
That sounds like some of
yeah, it does. I mean, first of all, that is a Middle Eastern custom, period. So any Middle Eastern nation you go into, if they invite you in their home, they have to protect you and feed you, etc. So it does come from this in Torah. But it is interesting how they say that many of the people who live in certain region of Afghanistan are probably lost tribe. You know, so interesting. You know that they carry. And so there are some who look like every bit of Muslim, like any of the other neighbors, but they're very Jewish. They don't eat pork. They, they're sheep herders. So it's interesting.
In Islam, they're not supposed to eat pork.
Correct.
True.
They're not supposed to. I don't know. Do they?
No, they don't.
Not their, they don't.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Didn't they, was it you that told me the Emirates Airlines had, you know how the buses here had the pig on them?
Well, the shuttle buses at Intercontinental Airport had little pigs because you save money riding the shuttle buses. United Arab Emirates, their airline, before they came down here and did business with Intercontinental, they told them to remove all those pigs off the shuttle buses.
And that's why they removed it.
If not, they wouldn't do business with them.
That's interesting. Wow.
The Quran says it's like eating the meat from the shoulder of your brother.
Oh my goodness. That's kind of cannibalistic. Yeah. Well, didn't they say that the pig is like has like it's not DNA structure, but it's something close to humans.
Even the skin tissue is close.
Yeah,
that's why they use them for testing ballistics or whatever.
Right.
My son had a schoolmate who was Islamic, and he kept saying it was dumb meat.
Dumb meat?
Dumb, D-U-M-B, meat.
Right. Well, the whole idea from the Zohar is that you eat pork and you eat unclean food, it affects you spiritually. It will dumb you down spiritually. So it's something to consider.
Physically.
So yeah, physically and spiritually, right. Verse 13, I'd like to read this. Take heed concerning all that I have said to you. Do not mention the name of the idols of the nations. They should not be heard out of your mouths. You should hold a festival for me 3 times a year. You should observe the Feast of Unleavened Bread. You should eat unleavened bread for 7 days, as I commanded you, at the set time of the month of Aviv. For in it you depart from Egypt. None shall appear before me empty-handed. And you should observe the Feast of the Harvest, for the feast of your work, and of what you sow in the field, and the feast of ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather in the fruits of your labors in the field. 3 times a year all your males should appear before the sovereign of the world, the Lord. You should not offer the blood of my paschal sacrifice with unleavened bread. The fat of the festival sacrifice should not be left lying on the side of the altar until morning. The choice first fruit of your hands should bring the land you should bring to the temple of the Lord. So here we're getting into a category of idot, testimonials, that is sort of this middle ground between the other 2 categories that we talked about before. These are laws of Shabbos, of the mitzvah, of Passover, etc., etc., and how the priests operate and work within this. Idols of the Nations, Onkelos recast the biblical phrase, other Elohim, which, if translated gods, little g, could imply that other deities exist. They maintain a prohibition, do not mention, relates to an oath, like swearing on this particular deity or that particular deity, right? Maimonides understood it as a literal sense that even mentioning other gods is prohibited. They should not be heard out of your mouths. The Aramaic pluralizes the biblical, your mouths, since other references said to you and do not mention are stated in the plural. Rashi and Maimonides explained that even causing others to swear by their God is prohibited. Does it make sense? So even causing a person who is has another religion to cause them to swear in your presence the name of their God is prohibited. It is to not be on your mouth. It is not to be in your ears. Why? Because the very first commandment, God says, "You shall have no other God before me." Before me. So the idea of even bringing it up is infidelity. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's be like your wife or your husband talking about their girlfriend or boyfriend. That would be kind of weird, right? Wouldn't be tolerated, I don't think. But it's the same way. We just don't even utter the name of another God. Go ahead.
I was studying, and they had said that if you are Jewish, that you are not even allowed to say certain names.
Correct.
You know, that you can't even say them.
You can't even say it. That's why they use circumlocutions or other names for them. Mm-hmm. Right? Because it's just so, you know, that if you're talking to an observant a Jew, they won't mention the names of other deities. They will give some type of explanation around them. The Chinese guy with the big belly and the incense that burn in front of him.
Did you ever notice that Jew won't? Also, they won't tell you, or like an old sage, you believe what you want to.
Say again now?
You believe what you want to, and what believe. They don't usually say that.
Mm-mm.
Because it's allowing them to believe their gods.
Correct.
So that's why you don't say that. So I had to hold back from saying that, because I always would say, you can believe what you want to, we'll believe that.
Right, and listen,
that's not proper.
Yeah, there are some people, and I've heard Rabbi Singer say this several times in opposition to this term. Well, you believe whatever you want to believe, and just leave us Jewish ideas and Jewish people alone. But Rabbi Singer says it's completely inappropriate. You don't want the nations to promote their deities in front of your God. All right? I mean, it's the whole point. The whole idea is that to give them that permission is like allowing them to swear by their gods in front of me. Right?
It's like authorizing them or putting a stamp of approval that it's okay for you.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. It's all right for you to do that. And listen, in reality, we know Hashem has this all figured out.
Right.
Okay? No one needs to become a Jew to have a place in the world to come. Right? At the same time, we need to be responsible for not promoting it. Any other religion outside of what Hashem has told us. Yes, ma'am. You gave me that look. You gave me the stink eye.
Well, we were going to do it after.
Yeah.
Oh, after. That's fine.
We need to do it after.
Yes.
Well, I just want to understand. If I'm having lunch with a girlfriend, okay, and she's talking about all these wonderful things and that her gods are doing,
Right.
and I don't say anything against that.
Well,
Is that the same
I don't
thing?
know. No, I don't. That's delicate. That really is
See,
delicate.
Just don't talk.
You also have to be kind.
You have to be kind.
That's an individual call.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
individual
just
Depends
call.
on your relationship with
Right.
your friend and, you know.
Right.
Because it's also not good to offend.
Right,
And to put something blatantly
Right, we don't
in
wanna do
front of
that.
her,
Just
because
take
that
it
could
over.
cause her to run away
right,
and not want to talk to you.
absolutely.
Yeah, you don't want to
Okay.
kill with your words.
Say again?
You don't want to kill with your words.
No, absolutely, you don't, yes.
And also, she obviously is a spiritual person. So all you can do is pray, because she is worshiping probably as if he is Hashem.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Like the
And so
golden
it's an educational thing, but I've learned the hard way.
Yeah,
Only when they ask.
Look where we all
Right.
Because they're
were,
not ready.
most of us
They're
were,
not ready.
Right.
except
Yeah,
Leslie.
exactly.
Right.
right.
She, I can't say all of us.
You said most.
Most, that was accurate.
Yeah, I did.
Accurate,
yeah.
yes.
Right.
How you handled us was gentle.
And that's how we should be with everyone around us, because Hashem knows the heart of mankind, and He knows. Listen, I would say the vast majority of religious people of other religions are fairly sober-minded people.
Right.
You know, they're in that because that's what has guided them morally and ethically and in every way. And so, in a way, Hashem has done a beautiful job putting His fingerprint on all of humanity's work doings in this modern age. And you see little signs of it all over the place. But there is only one God, and there's only one Torah, there's only one truth, right? And it doesn't mean that there isn't, and I'm careful about saying this because I don't want anyone to misunderstand what I'm saying. But there are many paths to that truth.
That's right.
I'm not saying that there are many paths. You can choose what you want
Right.
to
Right.
know Hashem, but there are plenty of paths, many paths, to that one truth. So it's all going to lead, ultimately, if a person continues to seek, if a person continues to study, it always ends up at the same place.
Even if it's a bad path.
Even if it's a bad path in their life, right?
We can consider it to be Hashem's drawing them.
Absolutely, because He's compassionate upon all of His creation.
Right.
And He wants His creation to know Him. Unfortunately, most are locked into a religious view that gives them a very narrow understanding of Hashem. And they're not going to be judged on what they don't know.
Right.
Right? They're going to be judged on what they have done with what they do know. And clearly, those who study more, those who grasp more, are going to be held responsible for what they know.
Right.
Right? So it comes down to ultimately these many paths of people's lives. Your journey hasn't been like mine and vice versa. And we cannot judge how a person is coming to their knowledge and relationship with Hashem. Can't do it. So there's a dividing line. But when it's talking about promoting or speaking or swearing by the name of another God, that is why so carefully within the Orthodox community they don't even say the names of other deities. They just won't do it, period. You know. So, any other questions, comments, fears, doubts, unbeliefs? None? We are out of time. I wish that we could have wrapped up. Say again?
I have a comment.
Yes.
I do too.
Okay.
When they started to talk about.
Okay, let's tell everyone shalom.
Shalom.
You should be in the class if you want to ask questions. Thank you.